Are you an HR department of one, trying to figure out how to balance task and strategy while keeping up with changes in regulatory compliance? Do you need a fresh outlook on old topics? Then stop what you're doing, grab your coffee, and get ready to recharge. If you have people, you have problems to solve and things to do. Your host is Brenda Neckvattel, a 20-year human resource professional, ready to explore the HR industry with veterans of business and life with fresh eyes and new ideas. Learn about the rapidly evolving changes in employment law around the country, as well as new tactics to deploy and build engagement in your workforce. If you're looking to implement new practices to make your job easier in HR, then this podcast is for you.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Best Practices in Human Resource podcast. And we are here to have an awesome time today. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of episode than we've done in the past. Everything right now is coronavirus, COVID-19. And, you know, we're just all kind of to that edge. We're all here. So this is going to be a much different episode than what you guys are used to hearing, simply because we have to break from it. We have to get our minds off of this, and we got to do some good stuff for ourselves. So I'm here to help share with you the what and the how in human resources. That's because I'm in the human business, and that means that there's a greater number of dynamics in the workplace to balance and manage. And if you folks are listening for the first time, welcome aboard. This is a fun show. It's meant to be fun. And of course, unfortunately, we've been talking about a very serious topic. And, you know, we've got the new laws that are coming, that are out. We've got the regulations now in place. And it's just absolutely crazy. And I'm going to tell you guys later in the episode where you can find a lot of this stuff, particularly, especially as it pertains to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So, but you know what? We're going to put all that aside. We're just going to check that over off to the side of the, and for those of you who are coming back time and time again, look guys, you guys rock. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening. Really, this is a time to be very appreciative of what we have and the relationships that we formed, because right now we need them more than ever. And you know what? Some of the feedback that I'm getting from you guys, I get emails and comments quite frequently. And you know what? Thank you so much, really, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for tuning in week after week. You know, you guys give me purpose to be here and to do these kinds of things. So thank you very much. All right. So normally what we do in the show is that we talk about employment changes, law changes across the nation. We'll have like a main segment. I talk about upcoming events. We have an HR question of the day and how you can get best practices delivered to your inbox. Well, we're going to like skinny it down by about 50% this time around, simply because we all need, like I said, a mental break. Okay. So today I have a very special guest. He's awesome. And we're just going to get right to this segment because he's fantastic. And right now, his message could not come at a better time. And to be honest with you, everything that I've planned, I mean, I plan weeks and months in advance for these types of main features. His is the only one that I've kept in its scheduled spot because of everything that's going on. And it's so pertinent. Okay. So before we go on, folks, I do want to share with you that the information that is available in this podcast is in fact for informational purposes only and not for the purpose of providing any form of legal advice. You should contact your attorney to obtain legal advice with respect to any particular issue. And if you don't have an employment attorney, go ahead and reach out to me. You can hit me up on the bestpractices.work website, and I will be able to refer one to you through our affiliates program. You can actually find a button that says Employment Attorney Referral. Click that underneath the dedicated coronavirus page that's in the upper right-hand corner of the main website. Okay, so we're going to just separate for a quick second. We're going to come back, and I'm going to introduce to you our main guest and our main segment for today. All right, folks, this is going to be an awesome, fun interview with a pal of mine here in the Virginia Beach area. He's a ton of fun, good guy, entrepreneur, making, like, literally reaching new heights. And I say that with a big pun involved because you're going to find out why. I'd like to bring Bob Pizzini on. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, Brenda, thank you very much. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. So the reason why I'm being punny pardon me, but I am, is that, and Bob's over the laughing because he's like, oh gosh, she really just did that, right? So
Funny.
Bob is the CEO of iFly here in Virginia Beach. So when I say reaching new heights, I'm literally not kidding. Did I lose you?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll edit that out. Don't worry about it.
Okay, all right.
So anyway, literally
I thought we lost connection there for a
Yeah, I
second.
did too for a second. Well, we may have, but that's all right.
Okay.
So Bob's reaching new heights and being the owner of the CEO of iFly. There you go. I should put in a rim shot sound right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can fire me now for that one, just saying.
Uh-huh. You could put in a high wind speed sound.
Yeah, there you go. Went right on over my head. Oh my gosh. How are you? How are things?
I'm doing great. The way the way you operate and the way I operate, we keep things at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's self-inflicted, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm doing great, involved with a lot of different things. Just returned from the state of the city where I introduced the mayor as part of my role as the chairman of the Virginia Beach chapter of the Hampton Roads Chamber,
Awesome.
and that's just one of many things that I'm fortunate enough to be involved with.
That's fantastic. Well, good for you. That's really cool. So Bob has an awesome, really, I sat in on his program to listen. I've heard it delivered many times, but I got a chance to see, or at least a portion of it, and I got a chance to see the complete program from start to finish and spend a day. And Bob is an awesome guy to talk to about leadership development. And before we really get into this, there's a ton of information out there on leadership development, what people can do to be better leaders. But Bob's focus is a little bit different. And I've had a lot of people approach me over the years, especially since I started doing this podcast series, that want to get onto the show to talk about leadership. But you know what? It doesn't necessarily resonate. And I really have reserved talking about leadership unless I'm speaking to members of the Naval Special Warfare community, because leaders like Bob, we've had Jim Foreman on the show, we've had several other, SEALs that have come on. And the reason why I bring them on is because their levels of leadership and comprehension of what needs to get done and how to go about doing it and merging with the people to do it is literally unprecedented compared to a lot of other things that I've seen out there. And it's just, I'm constantly impressed. So I want to always give opportunity to folks like you, Bob, to come in and actually talk about it. So I'm going to stop blathering, and if you do me a favor, share with everybody what it is that you like to focus in on in regards to helping people identify ways they can be better leaders.
Sure. Well, I spent 26 years in Navy Special Operations as a Navy explosive ordnance disposal technician, and it's a very physically demanding job. We have all the mobility skills of diving and parachuting and rappelling and fast roping out of helicopters and all the kind of high energy, high action stuff that you see. And that requires a high degree of physical fitness, obviously. Mm-hmm. And over the course of my career, and especially post-career, fitness is something that I have found I need to pay even more attention to, because my level of fitness directly impacts my ability to be a good leader or an effective leader. And I have developed a program, a one-day seminar, entitled Elevate Your Leadership, where I talk about the science of leadership. And so everybody's heard the term, the art and science of leadership. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the science is something that you've never heard discussed in the manner in which I discuss it. Now, I'll expand on that in a second, but the art of leadership is the first part that I discuss. And, these are age-old discussions. And for me, the art of leadership is quite simple. We have a foundation on which we base our leadership. And just like a skyscraper has a very deep and a very wide foundation to have the height that it has, a leader has to have a foundation or a method by which they lead, a very conscious method. Mm-hmm. And so I discuss 6 leadership styles and 7 power types. And very advanced leaders already have that foundation built, but leadership is very perishable, and you mm-hmm. have to review those basics on a regular basis. And then if they already have that foundation built, we will evolve it to the next level. Leadership is a lifelong pursuit and something that people will continually get better at. So that's the art component of it. And a lot of that is familiar territory for a lot of people. what I believe is completely unfamiliar and something that I discovered through listening to my own body over the years is what I call the science of leadership. And for me, the science of leadership is paying attention on a daily basis to your level of rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. And I'll take a quick pause there.
No, that's fine. You keep on going. This is a podcast episode. We want people talking.
Okay, great.
Oh, this is not a platform to be shy.
Okay. So I have put this presentation together after, first of all, having a 26-year career, and now I'm 11 years in the private sector, and feeling my body go through the changes over the years. In some cases, positive changes, and in some cases, changes for the negative. But I knew early on in my career, and I know till this day, that physical activity, or if I'm well nourished, or if I'm well hydrated, or if I'm well rested, I perform at a much higher level. Mm-hmm. Subconsciously, I think everybody knows that, but consciously, people aren't paying close attention to that. And I established, a few multi-million dollar businesses, and I've been fortunate enough to have success in the private sector. But a few years ago, I just didn't have the clarity and the focus and the mental energy that I had for the previous, we'll say, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to be able to visit a veterans program in Aurora, Colorado, called the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. And it was a 3-week program, and we spent a lot of time talking about not necessarily rest, hydration, nutrition, etc., but it was really focused on the health of the brain and the communication and the relationship between the brain and the heart. But it was through that process that I was able to finally make sense of what my body had been telling me throughout my entire professional life when it comes to rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. Those six things all have an impact, positive or negative, on my ability to lead. And those 6 things could also positively or negatively impact each other.
Yes.
So for example, if I'm not well rested, and people know when they're not, I'm not in the best state of mind to make a decision. Now, Jeff Bezos, who I'm sure everybody is familiar with, he insists on 8 hours of sleep per day. He says he makes it a priority, and he does that because the decisions he makes on a daily basis have multi-million dollar implications, and it's in his shareholders' best interest that he's well rested.
Yep.
And it's no different for any leader at any level. It is in your team's best interest that you show up every day well rested and ready to make the best decision you can make. But rest, again, is only one of the 6 components. Also, through my time at the Marcus Institute, I was exposed to an app, a sleep app, and it's called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Insomnia, or CBT-I, and I recommend everybody download it. But you can get through the whole app in 20 minutes to educate yourself on all the aspects of sleep, the different levels of sleep, and how you can really prepare yourself through night habits, through evening habits, to have a great night's sleep and wake up the next morning feeling refreshed, feeling energized, and really putting your day in motion. That's sleep.
Yeah. Yes. So something I want to interject here real quick, and I'm sorry to cut you off because I know you're on a roll, but something that's that I am a huge advocate on. As a matter of fact, earlier I was telling you before we started this interview that I was contracted to do a webinar on helping businesses prepare for the arrival of the coronavirus in the workplace. And one of the slides that I ensure that I put in there is that you need to take care of yourself as a leader. And I put minimum, try and get at least 6 hours of sleep, because you're going to be dealing with all of these things. And inevitably what happens is that when you're feeling tired and you run down, the consequences of this are that people see it. Not only do you feel it, and it doesn't do you any justice, but people see it, and people tend to start losing confidence because you're going to burn out. It's as simple as that.
No, it's very, very true.
Yeah, and so I'm a huge proponent. Those who are in the next gen HR women in HR community. Sorry, I'm getting backwards today, but they know, they hear me say it all the time. We even dedicate a whole week to talking about taking care of yourself. And on the weekends, I do a quick little post on Snap Out of It Saturday. What are you doing to do at least 30 minutes of something for yourself? On one day out of the week at the very minimum. So you have to take care of yourself, and that's a lot of what we're talking about. So please continue. This is awesome.
Yeah, so and you mentioned 6 hours of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the research that I have accessed says that the average adult really should get 8 to 9, or 7 to 9
Right.
rather, 7 to 9. And as I do my leadership seminars and as I interview people and have this discussion with people, I'd say 75% of the people that I interact with, they are in the 7 to 8 hour range, which
Mm-hmm.
is just healthy and recommended. So about 25% or so I find are less than that. Of that 25%, the majority of them are not comfortable with their current sleep. Some will say, oh, 6 hours, 5 hours, and I'm good to go. But most will say, I can't get more than 5 hours, and it's driving me nuts. I wish, I
Yeah.
don't wake up feeling well rested. And, not to make this a completely sleep focused discussion, but in many, many cases where people are sleep deprived for some reason, if you consult your healthcare professional, you can find the problem, therefore you can find the solution.
Yep.
And remember, when we're not well rested, we tend to be irritable. We tend to have a narrowed ability to focus, to think.
Yep.
And even in some cases, it can cause people to act in an unethical manner.
Yep. Absolutely. And then you're just a real joy to be around at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. But to your other point, people do see it. They see when you're not well rested,
Oh yeah.
and you're not sending good signals in that case.
Nope. Absolutely not. So please continue.
So after sleep, the next thing that people need to focus on is hydration. And it's amazing how many people do not know how much water they should drink on a daily basis. And when I say how much you should drink, again, this is looking at all the medical research, and it all generally agrees on how much you should drink. And that number, just to answer the burning question right now, is to take your body weight in pounds and divide it by 2. So for example, I weigh 180 pounds, divided by 2 is 90. That's how many ounces. 90 ounces is how much water at a minimum I should drink in a 24-hour period. You throw exercise and other strenuous activity on top of that, and you should really drink more than that. In addition to that minimum recommended daily amount of water, and we're talking about water here. People always say, well, does beer count, or energy drinks or other things? We're talking about water. But in addition to, in my case, the 90 ounces of water I should drink on a daily basis, drinking 16 ounces of water, that's 2 cups, 16 ounces of water first thing when you first wake up, ideally before your feet even hit the floor. If you drink 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning, you're doing 3 things. You are lubricating your spine, you are awakening your mind, and you are activating your digestive system. And so your first form of breakfast, right? Breaking the fast. You just slept for 8 hours. We're going to break the fast.
Right.
Your first meal in the morning should be 16 ounces of water. You dehydrate when you sleep. Your brain is 73% water. If you get a good night's sleep and you didn't wake up and drink water throughout the evening, you wake up dehydrated. Everybody wakes up in that state. 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning puts your body in motion in a way that's going to increase your alertness and your energy level.
Right.
From the very start of the day.
Yep. That's amazing. I started doing that when you told me, you're like, Brenda, just swig a quick 16 ounces first thing in the morning before your feet hit the ground.
Yeah, it's not difficult. I recommend room temperature water. Just have that that glass or that bottle of water at bedside before you go to bed, and to chug down 16 ounces of room temperature water is easy to do.
Yep.
And it doesn't take long. Have you done it every single day? And have you noticed over like day 3, day 4, you're like, I got a little more pep in my step earlier in the day.
Actually, where I see it the most. So to answer your question, I do it most days out of the week. Recently, I've had an injury in my left. I've dislocated my left elbow, so I've been doing a lot of things by myself. I do everything by myself to begin with, but they're just a little extra challenge to them until I'm completely healed here. But for the most part, I do have water. I do have 16 ounces, and I do take it first thing in the morning. But we're actually where I really see it the most, and I can tell when I'm pretty well hydrated, and I look at the skin on my hands, and I can see a difference, a huge difference.
That's interesting because I can look in the mirror. I can look at my eyes.
Oh,
and
really?
And the skin around my eyes, and that's where I notice, just visually, whether or not I'm dehydrated. I can feel it as well, but it's interesting how you can just look in the mirror and tell, or in your case, look at your fingers.
Yeah, well, it's at the top of my hand, and what's interesting is that I don't drink a lot of carbonated soda anymore. I kicked the habit on that, but every now and again, I do like a diet. I do like a diet root beer. So it's my favorite. It used to be my crutch, but that's kind of like a treat that I have every now and again. But it's interesting as though, I can hydrate all day long, but I have one of those, and I wake up first thing in the morning, I look at the top of my hand, and, it's raisined. And it's just, and I'm like, it just sucks the water right out of you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. So again, now if I combine those two elements, I'm not well rested and I'm not well hydrated, I'm even less prepared to, analyze a difficult situation or deal with something outside of the ordinary day to day. A leader's job typically is to solve problems on a reoccurring basis. Amongst the majority of what leaders do,
Right.
one of those is to solve issues, solve problems. And your physical fitness, your level of awareness is directly linked to, all 6 of the components we've discussed too so far: rest and hydration. So you combine a deficit of both of those, and now I'm really starting to negatively impact my ability to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's amazing. I mean, it's just amazing to me that, I know that we have a lot of leaders out there that, they have some sort of fitness regimen, but there's a lot of leaders that just don't do anything at all. And, when I travel for work, I'm usually, in the past, I always did what I could to get into the gym and keep what I was working and focusing on up to snuff and up to par. But I see a lot of people that just throw that right to the wayside, and it does impact your performance. I mean, just even as an employee, it impacts your performance more or less. A leader.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, this doesn't only apply to the leader; it applies to everybody on the team. And part of my discussion is that first of all, we're gonna look at the scientific aspect of leadership, and we're gonna lead ourselves. And number 2, we need to recognize these things in the people that we lead. For example, if I have a complex task for one of my teammates and we're discussing it, or I'm going to assign it, or there's a critical task at hand, and that teammate is clearly not well rested, not well hydrated, not well nourished, or otherwise just not physically very energetic, then I need to reconsider the task at hand.
Yeah.
Or I need to be prepared to accept a product of a lesser quality. And people go through these different periods. It's not to fault that individual. It's not to say, hey, you're not a good team member if you're not well rested, well hydrated, well nourished, etc.
Right.
But it's up to me to, number 1, enable an environment where they are well rested, well hydrated, well nourished. They have an exercise program. They're educated on brain and heart health, and they're focused on lifelong learning. I need to provide that environment.
Yeah.
But I also need to recognize when that environment is jeopardized somewhat in their world, and do what I can to help them to get them back on track. And that's not a short-term thing. That's a long-term thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
the other point about leaders who don't pay attention to this. So there's plenty of successful people who pay little or no attention to rest,
Right.
hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. But they're not optimal, and their expiration date is going to be a lot sooner than those who pay attention to it. And I don't mean expiration date like RIP. I mean their effectiveness to be a leader in the workforce. So really what we're talking about is optimizing the longevity of your career. How can you be the best leader you can be over the longest amount of time or the greatest duration?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. And I know what my answer is on this one, but I'd really love to hear yours. Why do you think focusing in on taking care of yourself in the manners as you are describing, why do you think people don't do it?
Well, I think for one reason, I think one answer to that is they're somewhat uninformed. A lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, I went through this wonderful veterans program a few years ago. I wish I would have went through this program 25 years ago. I
Yeah.
started doing yoga 2 years ago. I wish I would have started doing yoga 25 years ago.
Wow.
I just think this has never been brought to the forefront as a critical component of leadership, or to your point, of being just a good team member, a good productive employee.
Yeah.
And again, this stuff is borne out over time, and it just hasn't been brought to the fore. And I want to bring it to the fore, and I'm doing it because I'm listening. What I'm doing is I'm conveying the story my body has told me for the last 30 years. A lot of what my body was telling me, I paid attention to and I understood. I've always been a big proponent of exercise and education, but a lot of it I didn't understand exactly what my body was saying. I'm going to push through the night and run on 4 hours of sleep. Everybody does that at some point in either in their academic career or in their professional career. And a lot of people, myself included in the past, we wear that as a badge of honor. I got the project done. I only got 2 hours of sleep and I pushed through it. And that's actually, if a leader allows that to happen, you're being a reckless and irresponsible leader, quite frankly.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, the product you get, the quality of the product will be less, and that team member's enthusiasm and that team member's excitement and that team member's dedication will dwindle over time as well.
Yeah.
So it just hasn't been brought to the fore in a way that the other reason is very short-term. We're short-term memory and we're instant gratification.
Yes.
And this takes time for people to realize. But if somebody would have drilled this into me when I was 25 years old, hey, pay attention to these 6 things on a daily basis, and you're going to be the best you can be for the longest term. I would have done even better over the years.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And, I look back at it too. And you got to admit, though, when you're 25 to in your early 20s, man, nothing can knock you down. And you don't you don't believe that anything can take you out. And now here, we've well knocked on 40 a long time ago. But, and it's just like, oh, I wish I had done more. And I fully agree with you. And then, then you age, your body changes on top of it. And so then it requires those tweaking. It requires that tweaking. So what may have worked in doing this when you're 30 may not necessarily. You may have to adjust the type of food that you're taking, and you may have to go with more lean proteins versus, a higher level of grains or something like that. I mean, it's just your body's just going to shift.
No, that's so true. In my 20s and most people. In your 20s, you're bulletproof.
Totally.
you get injured, you heal quickly. You work through the injury, and that's that. In my career, Navy Special Operations, when I was in my 20s, it's all about swim farther, dive deeper. In my case, being an explosives person, use more explosives, make a bigger detonation.
That's right.
Drink more. All those things that people in their 20s have a tendency to do. And quite honestly, I wish I was better educated at that time. I don't know if I would have acted differently, but if I was better educated, there's a chance I would have anyway. Um, and then in my 30s, it's pretty much a repeat of the 20s, except late 30s especially. You go, oh, well, my knee hurts in a way it hasn't hurt before, or
Right.
that little thing in my shoulder's been there for 6 months now. I'm gonna go see the doctor about this. So that's kind of late 30s, and then in your 40s, it's like, okay, this is a long-term injury. I blew out an Achilles, or
Yeah.
some other. In my case, I had patellofemoral syndrome in both knees, and now the injuries really start to slow you down, and you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing? There's also a big change in exercise science. So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, body pumping iron by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was get on that bench and press as much as you could, and over the long term, you're just damaging your shoulders and you're damaging your joints.
Yeah.
And exercise science is so smart now with circuit training, and look at the things that gymnasts do. They're not in there pumping heavy iron, but they're lean and ripped, and they can do amazing things with their bodies. And so the science of exercise has changed significantly, and that's another part of being a leader is to pay attention to that, and to, number one, apply it to yourself in a smart way, and then number two, enable it. So rest, hydration, exercise. I'm sorry, we talked about exercise. Actually, in the order that I presented, I say rest, hydration, nutrition, and I'm going to touch on nutrition real quick. And this is amazing. And when you sat through the seminar, I'm not even sure if I put out the following the following information. 70% of chronic disease in the United States is due to poor diet.
Yep.
It's due to poor food choices. Therefore, it's preventable. 70%, that's an astonishing number. Astonishing.
It is.
And it's not surprising at all when you have, all the drive-throughs and all the frozen stuff and all the kind of prepared stuff. And it's convenient, and I'm guilty. I've eaten every single one of those things.
Yep.
But again, I wish I would have known the significance of nutrition 25, 30 years ago. And I'm sure, we were educated on it then, not as much as we are now. And there's more scientific fact now than there was then. But again, it wasn't beat into my head, so to speak. And that poor nutrition, that 70% of chronic disease that's preventable, it doesn't happen because you ate one cheeseburger one time. It happens because you have a lifetime of poor dietary decisions, right? And so,
absolutely.
So you have to, if you recognize that early, even if you recognize it later on, you can do something about it. So what I have to, and the other part about nutrition, and this is remarkable as well, to go hand in hand with 70% of chronic disease is due to diet, therefore preventable. We have in the U.S. we have the most advanced healthcare system, and we have, you could say, the most advanced pharmacological industry.
Yes, that's one way of putting it.
yeah, exactly. The big farm, right? So,
right.
So with that, we are 43rd as a nation in life expectancy. 43rd.
That's insane.
So, and why is that? Refer back to 70% of chronic disease in America is preventable through diet. That's exactly why. But that's just, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
So,
it's to the point too. It's like, what's now, I don't mean to cut you off, but
that's okay.
I do want to interject here that, part of leadership, look, either you're leading a business forward or, this is a show on HR, as HR leaders, admins, whoever you are listening to this, you don't even have to be in HR. But the thing is that, travel is a big component of how your food and your consumption of nutrition is impacted. Huge. And it's easy to, and I did it. I mean, I traveled every week for almost 5 years, and it's easy. But I got to the point where instead, as I had to go to different restaurants, if I knew where I was going, I'd always jump on and look at the menu ahead of time, and I was always cognitive thinking, okay, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat through the day? And I just made these little adjustments. So because they throw a ton of salt, they throw a ton of sugar in restaurant food, and I always felt the impact of it. And by the time I got done at the end of the week, I mean, I was drained. And I could feel it because of all that extra stuff that I would carry. So once I started looking at that, it's just a minor tweak. Instead of, you can have the steak, but, carefully select what your sides are. Instead of a baked potato, do a sweet potato. It's just these little things. Go ahead.
No, that's right. All those little food choices and food tweaks. The other thing is portion. Your portion, and this is not new information, but people just don't pay attention to this. Your portion should be the size of your fist. Your protein should be the size of your fist. And restaurants are very generous these days in the portion size. And so people have to adapt. Or if you go get that great big T-bone, and I love a big T-bone, eat half of it and bring the other half home and have it for a snack or have it for dinner or lunch the next day. I mean, there's a lot of smart things you can do, but your point is spot on. When you travel frequently, then managing the diet becomes more of a task. It's not undoable or terribly difficult, but it definitely becomes more of a task, and that's where you have to focus a little more attention on that. You're also right. Eating kind of road food, so to speak, for a week, for me, if I eat road food for a day, I'm wiped out. I don't have energy, can't keep my eyes open, I can't think. You do it for 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, you're really negatively impacting your ability to have what I call comprehensive situational awareness, to have this mental alertness where you have this 360-degree view of what's going on in your world.
Yes. And these other little tricks when you travel too, because you have to be on your feet. I mean, travel it's a necessity when it comes to business, but it's also a privilege because companies don't let people travel if they're not competent to do the work. So, there are days where, God, I can remember I get I'm on the road. I'm already getting after it 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and come 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I haven't eaten yet, and I need to eat my lunch. I might have like a little breakfast or something, but usually my lunch is what got skipped. But then I started developing. I'd either bring like a small bag of almonds or something that's just something that I can munch on versus the alternative of somebody saying, hey, let's go get something to eat. Here, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You go out and you get a heavy lunch, and then in less than 4 hours, somebody's saying, okay, now we need to go do dinner. And you're like, oh, crap, I haven't even digested my lunch yet. So I just got to the point where I'd bring an apple. I'd grab an apple from the hotel. If they did a complimentary breakfast or something, like grab an apple or a banana. I'd just always have something with me small. So if I blew that midday lunch, I wasn't loading up on so much food in the afternoon to turn around and then do a heavy dinner following that, because that's just what happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the snack thing, you talked about nuts. So fruits and nuts, I mean, again, this takes some preparation, but it's not rocket science. You go to the grocery store and you buy yourself 30 days worth of, I'm going to have a handful of almonds early afternoon. I'm going to have a handful of almonds late afternoon. Or I'm going to have walnuts, or I'm going to have pecans, or I'm going to have Brazil nuts, or I'm going to have macadamia. All those are great healthy snacks. And go in the fruit aisle. I actually like to prep my fruit a little bit. I'll buy a whole pineapple and chop it up. And, I can have 4 ounces of pineapple a couple times a day, or maybe I'll have 8 ounces of pineapple first thing in the morning. But there's all these little things you can do. And by the way, that's brain food as well. And we haven't got to the brain and heart aspect yet. But besides, you're keeping yourself out of the trough. And I know you've heard me talk about peak trough recovery. But 80% of the population, your body naturally goes into this trough state where you're not highly energetic and highly alert and highly analytical. And that happens mid to late afternoon. And so your body's already naturally taking you in that direction. And if you don't make good food choices, and if you're not well hydrated, and if you weren't well rested to begin with, you can't keep your eyes open at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Nope.
And that is, it's manageable. You can avoid that. You can be energized at 2:30 in the afternoon if you pay attention to the rest of this stuff. I did want to say something else too. You mentioned the HR aspect. So, HR departments seek out leadership training for the companies that they work for. That's part of one of the things that they're tasked with. And again, I would put forth that I don't think they go out and look for this, what I call the science of leadership training. I don't think they look for things that are based on rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning.
Right.
But hopefully if they're exposed to this podcast, when we're done and we've tied it all together, they say, hey, this is critical, not only for the leadership of the organization, but it's crucial to everybody in the organization. And crucial, and what can they do about it? They can enable it. They can send people to the appropriate courses and the appropriate training, and they can create a culture within the organization. They can create the environmental aspects. They can create the atmospherics that energize and motivate people. And I've seen it in my own organization. I have a modest little workout station on the 3rd floor in our building. And, I'll go out there and do some pull-ups, and I've got resistance bands hanging off of it. And I'll do different exercises. Well, lo and behold, there's one of our new hires who, walked past that thing for the last 3 months, and now she's using the assistance band and working on doing her pull-ups.
That's cool.
It's cool. It's super cool. And then there'll be 2 or 3 people out there, and they'll say, well, how many can you do? How many can you do? So they'll, instead of just walk by it and go, what's that thing? They walk by and go, hey man, I can do more pull-ups than you, or So you literally create a culture, you literally create a climate. And now I have people in the organization, they're going to the gym together before, during, or after work. And this is critical, but this takes time to create, and you have to be deliberative, and it's not a one and done.
Right.
What I'm talking about is very perishable. It's easy to, attend the briefing and then forget about it. You have to, as a leader, what my focus, one of the things I do as a leader is I continually discuss, I continually enable, I continually reward the behavior that models this type of healthy lifestyle, and it becomes part of the culture. And I've seen it, I see it, and it takes time, and it takes perseverance.
So what kind of rewards do you offer? I mean, I think that's a really cool thing to look at here. What kind of rewards do you provide your employees?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is we provide, it's not so much a reward, but we provide a rec center membership to anybody who wants one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and we encourage everybody to get a rec center membership. And it's funny there because during my in-briefing with new team members, I let them know that, hey, if you're interested in a rec center membership, let me know and we'll arrange that. About half the people say, oh, that's great, I'll take it. And probably the other half say, I'm good. And, in most cases, within the next 3 to 4 months, they come up and say, hey, can I still get that rec center membership? But in terms of reward, we do a quarterly all hands meeting, and we recognize, number one, top level performance. And that's largely through sales. At the end of the day, we're a for-profit business, and we seek ROI. So the teammates that sell the most get a form of recognition. We also have teammates who have recovered from injury. We have teammates who have lost a significant amount of weight. We have teammates who never ran before, and now they can't wait to come and tell me how they just finished a 5K.
Oh, that's so cool.
In the case of one of our teammates, she was not a runner. She's been with us for 6 years, so she's been around for a while. But she was not a runner to begin with. She became one. She was not a 5K runner to begin with. She became one. And that culminated in a half marathon. So,
wow.
So the reward for her was the company paid all of her fees to enter the race. Her and two young ladies actually did this race together.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, so the company paid their fees. And then we also have a very unique gym adjacent to our building that we're lucky enough to have access to. And then really, kind of public recognition, public acknowledgement of the efforts that people are putting into their health is, I guess, a form of reward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. So anything else that you'd like to touch on that we haven't touched on? We talked about nutrition, we talked about sleep, we talked about hydration. We talked about physical, and the last one, I think, if I got all my fingers correct here, is the continuous learning.
Yeah, so we have two more actually. We have brain and heart health.
Brain and heart health. There you go.
And then we have lifelong learning. And brain and heart health, I'll hit real quick. Your brain, most people know, it is the most advanced organism known to man. And your brain is programmed to make you react physically, emotionally, and mentally in certain ways to certain different situations. For example, fight, flight, or freeze. We've all heard that. And so what happens? You have an autonomic nervous system with two subsystems. One is the sympathetic nervous system, which triggers fight, flight, or freeze. So the tiger's chasing me. I need to run 1,000 miles an hour. So my blood pressure goes up, my heart rate goes up, my blink rate goes up. Blood is diverted away from my digestive system towards my heart, and my vision narrows. And my ability to because your vision narrows, your ability to see things, to see the wider, broader picture, and your ability to think about and analyze and observe the broader picture is reduced significantly. Now, that doesn't only happen when the tiger's chasing you. That happens in the workplace or at home in your personal life. This happens to you on a daily basis.
Yep.
Fight, flight, or freeze, sympathetic nervous system activates on and off all day long. The counter to that is the parasympathetic, and that slows things down. That reduces heart rate, reduces blink rate, reduces blood pressure. It widens your vision, and it widens your ability to reason and to analyze and to see what's going on. So you've heard the term stop and breathe. Hey, when things are getting, you're excited, stop and breathe. And by breathing, by having an inhalation that is shorter in duration than your exhalation, you're activating your parasympathetic. So somebody brings you grand news, either terrible news or very good news. It's news that makes you want to jump out of your chair regardless. That's your sympathetic nervous system reacting to the situation. You can just take a moment and do the breathing exercise, which is a 4 to 5 second inhale and a 6 to 7 second exhale, and take 30 seconds and do that, and shut that sympathetic system off by activating your parasympathetic. What you're doing is keeping yourself in the driver's seat. You're controlling the situation. You're not allowing your sympathetic nervous system to take control of you. And the end result of that is you make better decisions. You look rational, you don't embarrass yourself, and you don't become one of those people who nobody wants to be around. I'm not going to go tell them, you tell them. Or stay away from Bob today. Do you see the storm clouds over his head? You don't want to be that type of leader. Again, if you are that type of leader, your days are numbered.
Yeah.
And meaning the success of the organization is limited. And so sympathetic, parasympathetic, very important, and something you can manage in the boardroom, something you can manage before you're about to speak to your entire organization, something you can manage if you're going to make a pitch, a sales pitch, something you can manage in a time of crisis. Critical. And people have to do these breathing exercises, and they have to kind of learn, I discuss this in much greater detail, obviously, in Elevate Your Leadership. But these are things that apply to a leader. The last one, lifelong learning. Let me say one other thing about the brain and exercise.
Sure.
There's something called neuroplasticity in the brain. And this is one of those things where I said my body's been talking to me over my entire professional life, and sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to grow, change, adapt, and heal. Neuroplasticity was a theory 25 years ago. It is now a scientific fact. And you can turn neuroplasticity on with a switch, and that switch is your heart. And you activate that switch by elevating your heart rate. And if you elevate your heart rate to 60 to 85% of your age recommended maximum heart rate, neuroplasticity, it's a big word, it turns on and you see things more clearly. What happens is serotonin and epinephrine and another chemical that I can't remember right now, they feed your brain. Your brain is pre-programmed to receive these chemicals that it naturally produces. And when it receives these chemicals, those neural pathways are generated and they're cleared. So your brain grows, changes, adapts, heals. What happens? Strong body, strong mind, right? We've heard that.
Right.
After an exercise, you get the runner's high. You get that euphoric feeling if you've had a good workout. Well, all you have to do is elevate your heart rate to 60% of your age recommended maximum for a sustained period of time. Most research recommends a minimum of 30 minutes. But this allows you to see things more clearly. Throughout my entire career, I know that if I have a complex problem to solve, I would go for a run or I would go to the gym. I just could think through things so much more clearly when I was exercising. Why? Because my heart rate was elevated, and that elevated heart rate was flipping a switch in my brain, which gave me clarity. And I'm no different than anybody else. As a leader, be aware of that and again, enable that amongst your team. Okay, that's the brain and the heart. Then we have lifelong learning. Any leader who's sincerely interested in being the best he can be is dedicated to learning throughout their life. A great example of that is the sensei, the 5th degree black belt martial artist who shows up to the dojo wearing a white belt. And he says, somebody teach me something today. Always willing to learn. No matter what your status is, you're always willing to learn. I'll go, sometimes, when I feel the trough approaching, I'll walk around and talk to people in the organization. And I just want them to tell me what it is they do. Tell me about what it is you do exactly, or tell me what you've done today that's job related or task related. Tell me about what you do. And that's a great thing to do too, because number one, they're educating me, but number two, they're able to demonstrate to me their competence right then and there, and they're proud to share that, and it's just a very fun and rewarding discussion.
It is, and I'm going to interject something here too. It does something more. You haven't called it out yet, and I've heard you say this before, but here's something else it does. It also demonstrates to employees that you're approachable, and that's huge, absolutely huge when it comes to trust building in that relationship between leader and subordinate.
Yeah, very true, and you're right. I haven't mentioned it yet, but what's funny about that, and I get this feedback a lot, and I'm still trying to figure out what I can do better. But after I've had that discussion with people, even people outside the organization who, you've met at other functions or whatever, but when I finally have a nice discussion with people, they go, "Oh my God, you're so easy to talk to. You're so approachable." I thought, it's like they don't say it, but what they do say, they go, "My impression before was completely different than that."
Well, and here's the thing, and 9 times out of 10, you probably aren't even talking about anything that has to do with you. You're probably like just asking them questions, and all of a sudden, as a result of it, because you've taken an interest in somebody, you're the most fascinating human being on the planet.
Yeah, it's so funny. "Oh my God, you're so approachable." "Oh, thank you."
Such a great guy. Like, I'll just listen and ask you a few questions, but thank you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of forms of lifelong learning, and that's the other thing that leaders need to be aware of. I coach youth hockey, and I learned so much by being part of that organization. I started snowboarding about 5 years ago, and I literally felt the neuroplasticity happening as I'm learning how to snowboard and snowboarding.
Yeah.
And so reading books. There's so many books out there. It doesn't matter what you read. And Warren Buffett reads for 6 hours a day. Mark Cuban reads for 3 hours a day. And General Mattis, who released a book recently called Call Sign Chaos, he is of the belief that if you're an adult, midway through your career, if you haven't read hundreds of books, you're functionally illiterate. And that's a pretty extreme statement, but
it's extreme.
Yeah, but I can tell you that the success I've had and the good relationships that I'm lucky enough to have, a lot of that was fostered through behavior that I adapted to because of what I've read.
Yeah.
So that's just key. And then I'm always looking for, people can come as part of lifelong learning, come and visit me, do my seminar, Elevate Your Leadership. Go to Frank and Covey, go to Dale Carnegie, go to those coaches and those executive coaches and those mentors. Find those things out there, and it's not a one and done. I'll do one this year, I'll do another one next year, I'll do another one the year after that.
Yeah.
You have to expose yourself to things to see if there's value, and the value is different for different people, and that's just the way the world is.
Absolutely. And and so on top of the neuroplasticity piece, there's a lot to be said for what learning does just to your soul, just to yourself emotionally. And people, we get into a funk. I mean, everybody gets into a funk. We run into a situation that, feels like we've bit off more than we can chew. We're feeling the pressures of whatever's going on. We don't feel good about ourselves. But you know what? If you take on anything, even if you're just trying to get away with something, just go learn how to do something, just something new, or be inquisitive as to how something works and how it's figured out. And it's just new information. And, you remind yourself that, hey, listen, I am capable because I just figured this out, right? And it does tend to turn yourself around a little bit because, look, the one thing that we haven't talked about when it comes to leadership, it ain't easy. There's nothing easy about leadership. And everybody's heard that it's lonely at the top. And that really is true. I mean, you are an apex leader in your organization. How many people can you literally turn right or left in your building and actually just, if you needed a vent session, could vent and it not violate some form of confidentiality or, do something
Some
that
HR protocol. That's right.
yeah, make your director of ops hand in his 2-week notice. You know what I mean? It's just, and he wouldn't do it anyway. He's a cool guy, but still, it's that kind of thing. It's like, the higher up you go, you can see the horizon in a longer distance, but you're the only one looking at it unless you've got somebody that you have a soundboard for. And if you don't do that, it's not emotionally and mentally healthy. So you have to be able to, the neuroplasty piece, exercise that part of your brain, but it also has to hit you at the emotional level as well.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that, and you're right about being able to have those discussions with your peers, and that's another thing. That's another part of lifelong learning is, get outside of your organization, interact with your peers. I had a senior military leader in my Elevate Your Leadership seminar that I did yesterday, and this guy in his mid-40s started playing the guitar, and he said it did wonders for him. Mm-hmm. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and he needs that learning challenge. He craves that learning challenge. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was in my favorite all-time job, when I did that job for 5 years, and I loved that job. It was my dream job. Now I'm creating my dream job, right? But when I was in it, I designed jewelry for 5 years, and I had to have that brain dump. I had to have a place where I could exercise the other half of my brain and get creative because that's where I needed some of that balance. And if I didn't have it, then I was always in this constant learning thing, but I was always in my swim lane on business and HR and I'm just like, this is all great stuff, but I'm feeling the moss growing on me here, because it wasn't new and it wasn't fresh and it was exciting from a business perspective, but it wasn't fulfilling from a personal perspective. And so you have to have those fun things. I mean, go to iFly and jump in the wind tunnel with Bob for a little while,
That's
or
right.
whoever.
That's right. Yeah. Come and fly with us. We'll change your perspective on a lot of things. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, just doing something different, just getting out. That's why I encourage, over in the Next Gen Women and the membership site, and then also in the Facebook group, you have to do something for 30 minutes just for yourself, at least once a week, at the very absolute minimum. Because if you don't, you're just going to lose it.
Yeah, completely agree. That's self-care. And, when I talk about rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. These are things that just in little doses, pay attention to it every day. And I consider that doing something for yourself. Just in little doses, pay attention to it every single day and feel, celebrate. Take the time to celebrate the fact that reward yourself. Hey,
Yeah.
I feel good because I paid attention to some very important things that are good for my mental and emotional and physical health. And then also forgive yourself.
Oh, yes.
I prepare my meals, I try and prepare my meals, but I don't always eat the meals that I prepare because of, whatever. I want to work out 5 days a week. Sometimes it turns out to be 3 days a week. But you can't beat yourself up over that stuff. Just, celebrate the gains, celebrate your activity, and don't beat yourself up.
No, absolutely not. But don't get complacent with, well, I can only drop it down to 3, because then you get, like, if somebody's counting calories, or if they're counting carbs, and if they kind of get a little too loose, it's what they call carb creep or calorie creep.
Yeah,
It's the
right.
same kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden it's a level of complacency that sits in. You still need to have that level of discipline, but you know what? You don't have to put your fingers in a vice if you can't meet the benchmark, because stuff happens in life, and all you have to do is just deal with what you have to deal with and then get right back on track again. And for some people, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, right. Exactly right.
Joe. Well, this has been awesome. So if people want to learn more about your program, how can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can visit robertpizzini.com quite simply, and that will take you to my Elevate Your Leadership page. And from there, you can kind of learn more about my 1-day offering, my 2-day offering, and then the 3-day, what we call a an offsite. And in addition to that, LinkedIn, I've got a fairly built-out profile on LinkedIn. So robertpizzini.com, or look for my name, Robert Pizzini, on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to. I answer my own phone, by the way, so I'll be happy to talk to anybody.
So let me ask you a question before I sign off. So if a company wanted to bring you in instead of them going out to do an offsite, would you be willing to come in and actually do your leadership program in-house?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I can do it obviously at iFly Virginia Beach, where we incorporate the flight experience. I can do it at 34 other iFlys across the U.S., or we don't have to do it at an iFly. I can go to any corporate location and deliver my Elevate Your Leadership experience without the flight component.
Yeah, well, just be comfortable with the fact that Rob's not going to throw you out of a perfectly good airplane if
Yeah.
he doesn't have a wind tunnel. You'll be fine.
Remember, no such thing as a perfectly good airplane.
See, there you go.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, great discussion, Brenda. Thank you for inviting me.
So we're going to do something a little bit different today. Actually, we've been kind of doing things a little different the whole episode, but the thing that's a little bit different is that we're actually recording this in the middle of a thunderstorm. So you may hear some rumbling going on in the background, and you know what? We're just going to have fun with it. So guys, just so you know, a couple things, just a few announcements. Up on the bestpractices.work dedicated coronavirus page, we've got some things to point out. I have added the Department of Labor rules that just came out this past Monday on April 6th for the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is the second wave of information that we've been waiting for. There's a whole bunch of really good, actionable, downloadable, accessible information here on this page for you guys. You're not going to get like a bunch of media stuff. You know, if you want to do media stuff, you can just read the news on your own. That's fine. But what we have here is everything that has to deal with employment and everything that you can use to help you work through this. Plus, we've also got a list of all of the webinars that I am actually facilitating and you are welcome to join in. We've got about, 10 here from Train HR. We've got 4 more over at Compliance Amend and Asset Pro, one over there on the 14th. So these are a wide variety of topics, all related to what we're going through right now. You guys take advantage of this. This has got really, really good information out there. Again, that's bestpractices.work and the dedicated coronavirus page that's up there. Email me your questions. You guys are welcome to, especially now, email me your questions. You can also set up time to talk with me for about 20 minutes. You can just go to the bestpractices.work website on the coronavirus page, and then there's a button. There's 2 buttons there. One is a button where you can actually request like if you need help finding an employment attorney. It's not coming out of my mouth. And then the other one is you can go ahead and set up some time with me. That's not a problem, because people are doing this. They've got a lot of questions about understanding what's the difference between paid sick leave and the extended family medical leave. And it's all a little confusing, and there's a lot of ambiguity that's surrounding this. So we're working on cutting through that. So you guys, that's all I'm going to say about the coronavirus. You can now completely put it to side. But we don't have an HR question for the day. Again, just wanted to kind of get your brain snapped out of it. But I will tell you that we are also lending support. If you are in HR or you're coming into the field, join us over on the Facebook group at the Next Gen Women in HR. It is a free service. You guys can come on over. We're doing all sorts of really awesome little learning that's out there. We take things in small chunks and help people figure out their people problems within the group. And it's really starting to take off. It's only been around since January 6th, and we have 130 members in it. So, it's a really, really, really good group of women. And, we got guys in there too. So, and they are followers and participants in human resources. So we got some really good stuff coming on. You can also go ahead and jump in and fill in your your subscription. Wow. To the Next Gen Women in HR member page. And the member page is some place where you can go and you can access vital resources. It's an exclusive page. You get vital resources, a whole bunch of really great information, including all of the articles and the call outs, plus a lot more that I get on a regular basis. That's where we house those. And I mean, over the past several weeks, I've loaded up about 300 different ones. So there's a lot of really good, juicy information over there. It is less than 3 cups of coffee in a week for a monthly membership. You can choose between the Breakthrough group, which is really at the beginner level. That's $9 a month. And then over at the Enterprise group, that's $15 a month. Super affordable. Enterprise is for those who have a much richer HR experience. So again, we're not doing an HR question today. We are foregoing a lot of this just so you guys can take in everything that Bob talked about. Awesome guy. And just find your place to snap out of, because we do have to take care of ourselves. And I am a huge proponent on doing so. But you can follow me. You can find out what's going on over in my world over Instagram and Facebook. You can find me at the Best Practices in HR. Over on Instagram, you can find me again also at Brenda the HR Lady. YouTube and LinkedIn is also, you can find me by my name, Brenda Neckvatal. That's N-E-C-K, like the thing you want to choke. V as in Victor, A-T-A-L. And a little teaser here, working on a special project to where we've got some regular programming coming out on YouTube. So there's a little teaser there for you. Some pretty cool stuff. And then you can also find me also at the website at bestpractices.work, where if you click on connect at the top of the page, you'll be able to get my best practices delivered directly to your inbox. Folks, thank you again. Episode 55 on the books, for the record. You guys are fantastic. You're awesome. Look, hang in there. I know we're all going through this, but you know what? Look, we're going to get through this. This is just a phase of our lives. Our worlds are made of peaks and valleys, and Lord knows we are certainly in the valley right now, but we will come out of that. The next 2 weeks are going to be really critical. So do your part, stay home, stay healthy. If you think that you might be sick, do something about it. Okay. Don't wait. Don't delay. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it. I'm sorry to say it, but that's the harsh reality. Stay in, social distance, be good to yourselves, and enjoy the time that you have with your family. And this is just one big reset button of our life. So, guys, take it easy, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.